Welcome to Strength Foundation. Today, we are diving into what I think is probably the single most important chapter for your career, Chapter 20. We're talking about clients with heart and lung conditions. And listen, if you get this wrong, the consequences can be pretty serious. But if you get it right, you can literally change someone's life. This isn't just about passing the exam, it's about you becoming a trainer that people can truly trust. Let's get into it.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to define your lane. What's your role and what's totally out of bounds. Then, we'll dive into the big three: hypertension, clients who are recovering from cardiac events, and asthma.
First up, let's talk about your role. Look, before we even dream of writing a program for these clients, you have got to know where the lines are. What are your responsibilities? This is so foundational. So take a look at this. This graph right here, this is why we're talking about this. That top line, that's cardiovascular disease. It is still a leading cause of death. And what does that mean for you? Well, it means you are absolutely 100% going to have clients with these conditions. So being prepared? Yeah, that's not optional. It's a must. All right, the NSCA basically says your job boils down to these four things. First, you got to understand the what and why of the disease itself. Like, what's actually happening inside the body? Second, you need to know the different stages. Third, you're the expert on how exercise helps. And finally, and listen, this one is huge, you have to know when to put the brakes on and say, you know what, this is above my pay grade, you need to see a doctor. If you can nail these 4 points, you're on your way to being a fantastic, responsible trainer.
Okay. Let's get into our first major condition, hypertension. You've probably heard it called the silent killer, right? And for good reason. A lot of the time, there are 0 symptoms. Heads up, the NSCA exam loves to ask about this, so you're going to want to really tune in for this section.
Okay, I'm serious here. You need to burn this chart into your brain. Screenshot it, write it down, I don't care. You have to know these numbers cold. Here's the simple way to think about it. If they're under 120/80, awesome, that's normal. But the second that top number, the systolic, creeps into the 120s, that's a yellow flag, that's elevated. The real danger zone starts at 130 on top or 80 on the bottom. Boom, that's stage 1 hypertension. And if you see 140/90 or higher, that's stage 2. All alarm bells should be ringing. You've got to be super careful.
All right, here's a term that will almost certainly pop up on your exam: target organ damage. This is basically the so what of high blood pressure. It's what happens when hypertension is just left to run wild. It's the heart, the brain, the kidneys, the eyes, all these vital organs taking a beating from that constant pressure.
All right, these are your non-negotiables, your absolute safety rules. Listen up. That number right there, 220/105, think of that as your big red eject button. If you see that reading during a workout, you stop. Immediately. No questions asked. Workout's done. Okay, next. Every single workout needs a longer cooldown. We want to bring that blood pressure down nice and slow, not just drop it off a cliff. And last but not least, the one the exam always hits on, the Valsalva maneuver. You cannot, I repeat, cannot let your client hold their breath during a lift. It creates this huge spike in internal pressure that's just incredibly dangerous for them. Your job is to constantly coach them, breathe out on the effort, in on the return. Always be breathing. Okay, so now let's talk about clients who've already had a major cardiac event. Working with this group requires a whole other level of care and constant communication with their doctor.
So what you're seeing here, this is the root of the problem. This is what's going on inside the arteries. Look at the image on the left. That's atherosclerosis. I want you to think of it like rust and gunk building up inside a water pipe. Over time, the opening gets smaller and smaller. Now look at the picture on the right. This is the catastrophe. This is when that plaque cracks open. The body's natural response is to form a blood clot to patch it up, right? But in a pipe that's already narrow, that clot can act like a plug and block the whole thing off. And if that blockage happens in an artery feeding the heart, that's a heart attack. If it's in the brain, that's a stroke. Understanding this visual is everything.
You got to speak the language for the exam, so let's get these terms down. MI stands for myocardial infarction. That's the textbook term for a heart attack. CBA is a cerebrovascular accident, fancy way of saying stroke. And then there's PAD, or peripheral artery disease. It's the exact same plumbing problem we just saw, that plaque buildup, but it's happening in the arteries of the limbs, usually the legs.
Okay, so for your clients with PAD, this little scale here is going to be your new best friend. Claudication. That's the cramping pain they get, usually in their calves, when they exercise. Your job is to use the scale to manage their workout. A common strategy is to have them walk until the pain hits about a 3 or 4, then they stop and rest until it goes away, and then you go again.
It's like interval training, but based on pain, not time.
All right, let's pivot. We've talked about the heart and the plumbing. Now let's talk about the lungs. Specifically, we're going to zoom in on asthma and what you need to know to train these clients safely and effectively.
Okay, this is a really important point, so listen close. Exercise-induced bronchoconstriction, or EIB, is exactly what it sounds like. The airways tighten up because of exercise. But here's the kicker, and this is what trips people up. A client doesn't need to have an official asthma diagnosis to get EIB. It can happen to anyone. So you've got to be on the lookout for the signs: coughing, wheezing, shortness of breath, no matter what their intake form says.
If you have a client with diagnosed asthma, you absolutely need to know about their action plan. The easiest way to think about it is like a traffic light. Green zone? We're good to go. They're feeling great, breathing easy, let's have a great workout. Yellow zone? Uh-oh. We're seeing some symptoms, maybe some coughing, feeling a little tight in the chest. This is our cue to slow down, take a break, and reassess. Red zone? That means stop. Full stop. The workout is over. This is a medical alert. They need to follow their doctor's emergency plan, which probably involves the rescue inhaler, and you need to be prepared to help.
Here's another super important tool. For a lot of clients with asthma, their heart rate can be a little wacky because of their medication, so it's not always the best way to measure intensity. So instead, we use this, the dyspnea scale. It's basically asking them, on a scale of 0 to 10, how out of breath are you? It's a really simple but powerful way to make sure you're pushing them enough, but not pushing them over the edge.
You know, I wanted to end on this quote from the book because I think it really gets to the core of why this chapter matters so much. Look, for someone who's survived a stroke or a heart attack or who manages asthma every day, coming to you to exercise, it's not just about losing weight or building muscle. It's about taking back a piece of their life. It's about quality of life. And once their doctor gives them the green light, you are on the front lines of that journey. So this stuff we talked about today, it's not just to pass a test. This is the knowledge that lets you step into that role safely and make a real, powerful difference in someone's life. Don't ever forget that.